Welcome back to Rad Futures, Alan Collinge of studentloanjustice.org. Nice to have you again. I was getting myself ready and thinking I should rename my channel to Student Loan Justice Channel. Because
I'm
I was
pretty
like, oh
exclusive,
my,
eh?
what's that?
Pretty exclusive, eh?
Yeah. Um,
Well, happy
okay.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving to you too. Thank you. Um, let's talk about some recent developments in the student loan debt world, I guess. I know from your latest post that there are some new things, one in particular, which is the class action lawsuit.
Very true. So I guess maybe the big story right now is the worst time ever in the 20-year history of me doing this. Worst time ever for student loan borrowers. The loans are turned back on. Nobody's able to pay. Like the repayment rate is like 30%.
Mhm.
It's even lower today than it was a year ago. And that's frankly surprising. The servicers have and the debt collection companies have sunk their fangs into people. Everybody's getting threatening letters, and here we are in the holidays. So, but there is one bright spot, and that is a class action lawsuit. So, studentloanlegalaction.org. People should have a look at it. Um, we never get involved with lawsuits, Jessica, because particularly class action lawsuits, because they almost never go anywhere. And even the ones who succeed usually only benefit the lawyers and stuff like that. So it's just we're very reluctant to join in with most class actions. This one is different. So last year, the Supreme Court ruled 9-1 that federal agencies who are running loan programs like the Department of Education can actually be sued in court for violations of what's called the Fair Credit Reporting Act.
Yeah.
So that's um, basically where if a lender starts, dinging your credit report for no good reason or for faulty reasons, if they threaten you with the dunning of your credit report unless you take an action, and then they make it impossible to communicate with them.
Yeah.
So, for example, last spring, the wait times for the servicers and even the Department of Education were like 10 hours, 12 hours. The call drop rate was like 95%. Even the people who wanted to actually, get their student loans back in order, they were unable to even communicate. And so
Mhm.
their loans got thrown into default and their credit scores tanked. And that happened to probably millions of people. So it's just really good timing that Supreme Court case happened last year. Um, and this case goes directly to the heart of that. So I'm estimating that this year, probably 5 million people are going to be thrown into default. And many, if not even most of those people, tried to get their loans back in good standing, but were unable to communicate with the lenders, or even those who were able to communicate were baffled and bamboozled. They were given misleading, conflicting information. You call one day and they say one thing, you call the next day, they say another thing, just leave you in a state of perpetual confusion. And really, the entire federal student loan program is in total disarray and chaos. And that's been true this entire year and even well before. So this is a very formidable lawsuit. And again, I'm always very wary. But the thing that really sort of tipped the scales for me with this lawsuit to start publicizing it was the fact that the guy running it uh, is the former chief operating officer of the Department of Education's Office of Federal Student Aid.
Oh,
And this
really?
guy named Wayne Johnson. Yeah, he ran the federal student loan program under President Trump during Trump's first term.
Yeah.
And I'm a nonpartisan guy. I can't stand the Republicans or the Democrats. On balance, the Republicans are probably a little more evil than the Democrats.
Mhm.
It's hard to say, but um, so this guy Wayne Johnson is a breath of fresh air from conservatives. So it's quite rare that conservatives do anything nice for student loan borrowers or even tell the truth often. Um, but Wayne Johnson came into the Trump administration in 2018, I want to say. I think he was there for less than a year, and he quit his job. He was like, and he could speak to this more than I can speak for him, but the impression I got was that he was like, whoa, this thing is poison. And so he left his job, and he started calling for student loan cancellation across the board. He started calling for the return of bankruptcy protections to the loans.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he made himself any great friends within conservative sectors,
Sure.
but the guy is a true leader. And
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
honestly, he's trying to point the way for future conservatives. And so, yeah, I'm fully on board with this lawsuit, and everybody should go to studentloanlegalaction.org.
that's
and check it out.
that's the website for the class action.
Yeah, he ran the entire federal student loan program while he was in office.
Wow.
And
So Wayne Johnson. Wayne Johnson, my man, protect yourself.
I know,
Stay
right?
safe, get some security backup or something.
Yeah,
I
he's a truth teller, and
Yeah, well, I
I
was gonna
mean
say, I
those come
mean,
around very rarely. I have noticed, and so um, the good news is it's been reported in Politico, and CNBC reported on it, Business Insider, a few other places. Um, I don't think he's making any friends certainly among swamp conservatives inside the Beltway, in and around the Department of Education. But he's a true leader, and I think if you look at an interview that he did with Tucker Carlson in 2019, right after he left the department, you can really understand where this guy is coming from. He's worried about the country. And by the way, he's in his 70s. He's been around the block a few times, and I don't think he's looking to make a reputation off of this. He's just doing the right thing for the right reasons.
yeah.
Um,
Um,
and
I
so
was
I
gonna
strongly
say
recommend everybody to check it out.
he sounds, I mean, the fact that he was the former chief operating officer of the Department of Education's Office of Federal Student Aid, the fact that he's doing this, I mean, this is an indictment in and of itself, I feel. I mean,
It really is,
he was
and even when he left the office, he went on Tucker Carlson. Here's one more link for you. So bit.ly
mhm.
/ hear it from Tucker. When I saw that interview, it is the most important, most prescient interview that I have seen done on the student loan issue from someone that matters, besides myself, because I don't matter. But somebody who actually held power, saying true, honest things. It is the most significant interview I've seen on this in decades. So bit.ly / hear it from Tucker, all one word. You'll be stunned. He's saying really the same things that we've been saying for many years.
And so this is an interview with Tucker Carlson and Wayne Johnson?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's from 2019, before. This is way before we started the petition for canceling student loans by executive order. In fact, it was really that interview and some things that Trump did that really inspired me to write that petition in the first place.
Can
So
we talk about
change.org / cancel student loans. I'm just spitting out links here today. I apologize. But yeah, no, our petition, which launched the entire concept of canceling student loans by executive order into the public conversation, it was frankly Trump and Wayne Johnson that sort of inspired me to put that out there. And that petition had grown to 500, 600, 700,000 signatures. It was going viral in the media, and only then did Elizabeth Warren and Chuck Schumer and other Democrats embrace the concept And ultimately, Biden made it a part of his presidential campaign in 2020. I don't like what they did with it. I don't think they were
No,
very sincere at all. Quite
no.
frankly, Biden just used it as
It
a
was
lure for voters.
a piece of bait. Just yeah,
That's exactly.
they threw it out there to retain the voters for the midterms, and everybody knew they weren't going to follow through.
That's exactly. That's exactly what happened. Nancy Pelosi and other Susan Rice, other leading Democrats, they really are the reason that Supreme Court case went against us. In fact, when the Supreme Court announced their decision and wrote their opinion, they mentioned Nancy Pelosi and her comments as a rational basis for their judgment, because Nancy Pelosi was under the influence of these very wealthy West Coast billionaires. And for whatever reason, it's called the Swig family, SWIG. Shame on that family. After our petition started getting really big, after Joe Biden made the promise, the Swig family whispered in Nancy Pelosi's ear, and all of a sudden Nancy Pelosi was saying what our opponents were saying, which is that no, the president can't cancel loans by executive order. He can pause them, but he can't cancel them, and just all this complete nonsense. Donald Trump canceled student loans by executive order twice, by executive order. And there were no lawsuits. Right. There was no recriminations. There was no blowback, nothing. And Joe Biden could have easily done the same thing, particularly during COVID. And so, yeah, Nancy, I can't. Oh.
Can we get conspiratorial for a minute?
Sure, let's.
It's 2025, right? I mean, we got all this stuff out there about Project 2020. What is it? Project 2025, right? Something like that.
Yes, it
is. Yeah. So it's 2025. We have Project 2025. People were warning everybody about it a long time ago. Here we are. The economy is obviously
precarious.
Yeah, very precarious.
I would say.
Very nice way to put it. That's a nice way to put it. It's a great word. Actually, I like the word. Precarity. Yeah, so what do you think? Do you this is obviously you've been at this for quite some time, right? You released your book in what, 2004 or 6, something?
2009. I started Student Loan Justice in 2005, so it's been 20 years.
So you've been at this for quite some time, and you've seen every hue of every color come through the rainbow on.
I've seen every trick, every lie, every trap, every
right. So what do you think? What do you think is really going on here? Or do you feel like saying what you really think is going on might put you in any kind of danger or anything like that?
I have no fear. I think nobody in Washington, D.C. has the first clue about what to do. I think that's been true since COVID. COVID was the nail in the coffin of this lending catastrophe. Today, fewer people are repaying than were repaying when they turned the loans back on over a year ago. Mm-hmm. So about 30% of all borrowers are paying. In other words, no, actually it's less than that. It's closer to 25%. Close to 75% of all student loan borrowers today are not paying. And that's even fewer today than it was a year ago. And there's a couple of tells. So the Trump administration, they should have been garnishing wages and garnishing Social Security for the past, certainly since May 5th. Mm-hmm. And they have not done that. They are not garnishing Social Security, and they haven't even begun to garnish wages yet. So that tells me that they're scared because they know how failed this thing is. They would love to just bury this thing in the ground and walk away from it if they could, but they know that they can't. And so, if they could sell off the loan portfolio, I think they would do that in a heartbeat to Wall Street. But again, because ironically, because of the big, beautiful bill, which greatly limited the president's authority to waive, compromise, cancel, and also sell the loan portfolio without congressional authorization. It's going to be almost impossible for them just to sell the thing off to Wall Street, which I know they want to do. I've been predicting that all year. I don't think anybody knows, and we're in the Wild West here. I know what the servicers and the student debt collection industry wants. They want exactly what's happening now to keep happening. Only they want They want the power to garnish wages as well.
So I
They
like,
love defaulted loans.
yes, and that goes back to our last video that we
Yes.
did, where you were kind of, calling out some of the other organizations that deal with this type of thing, and
The other corrupted advocacy organizations who are actually business partners with the student debt collection industry, like the Debt Collective, completely fake, corrupted group. And I already said it, so people could see the last live stream to see the full rant. Student debt crisis, totally corrupted, totally in league with the student loan industry. What the industry has wanted for many years is a mass default on student loans and the
right,
continued absence of bankruptcy rights. That is
right,
their number one goal.
and I think most people don't ask themselves the question, which is what you raised last time. You said if there's a mass default, this is something that actually never even occurred to me. If there's a mass default or a default in general, if for an individual, and then you think about it on this grand scale of 43 million plus people, uh, who does that serve? Does it serve anybody? Is it really, is defaulting really the way to go? Who does it serve anybody's interests? And it does. It serves the debt industry because then they get to come in and they get to do what they do, which,
Yeah, and what they do, if they can't get money from you, what they can do is they can get you to rehabilitate your defaulted loans. They
right.
might not even call it that. It might be consolidating your loans out of
Mhm.
default. But what they're not telling you is that there is a 16% collection rate that gets slapped on to those rehabilitated loans,
Yeah.
and the taxpayer pays them that money upon rehabilitation of the loans.
Mhm.
So if you have a $100,000 defaulted loan that you rehabilitate at, well, let's say a $50,000 or $60,000 defaulted loan that you rehabilitate and you sign for a new $100,000 loan with all the penalties and the fees, those people get a $16,000 paycheck from the taxpayer, and it
Right.
gets added onto your debt.
Right.
It's the biggest scam in the entire universe of student loan scams. And the most important thing, Jessica, about that whole thing is that many years of history shows that these rehabilitated loans, they wind up in default 80% of the time.
And
So they
not
wind
just
up,
once.
yeah, they wind up defaulting again a second time 80% of the time. And what is even most pernicious about that big, beautiful bill, which was not, it was big, it was not beautiful.
Right.
That bill, hidden in the fine print of that bill, is the provision that the lending industry can now run people through loan rehabilitation not once, but twice. So right now, with one rehabilitation, okay, you defaulted at 50 grand, you signed for 100 grand, they got $16,000. Then you defaulted again. 80% of the people do. Well,
Yeah.
now under current law, they can get you to do that whole thing again. So, 100,000 defaulted loan becomes 150, 60, 70,000 or whatever it winds up being
Mhm.
when you sign yet again for yet another loan rehabilitation.
Yeah.
And just keep the numbers simple, if that 100,000 turns into 200,000 with all the penalties and fees and interest, etc., they now get another check from the government for $32,000. And that is a huge amount of money for almost no work.
So
You know, the
really, yeah. So going back to that video, right? Everybody, if you haven't seen it, go back, watch the last video that we did. We talk about this in depth.
It's just a poisonous scam. It steals from the taxpayers and it absolutely demolishes the
And it's the
livelihood.
debt industry, it's the collector agencies and stuff like
It's,
that are really
it's
running with the bag. Right. So everybody on Twitter who's like wagging their finger and poo-pooing student loan debtors should actually be doing that to the debt agencies
That's
because
exactly right. If you want to wag your finger, you should be wagging it at the debt collection industry, the entire student loan industry, really.
they are the
And that
ones who are
and that
actually
includes,
benefiting from the taxpayer at the
yeah,
moment.
the cui bono, follow, who benefits.
And
Look at
and
the people
and
making money off of this, and that's who you need to come after.
And for all those people, the finger waggers, I know one of the going lines, the shaming, one of the what's it called? One of the lines that they use to shame the debtor.
Why should my taxpayers pay for your
Why
college?
should why should my
My
taxes
tax dollars, yeah.
that I've paid, pay for your college, get a job, loser, and it's like, okay, I've heard that so many times, obviously, and they've like programmed it into these bots and their sort of lines that they toe and stuff. So the bots will come on there and they'll swarm these comment sections with the same thing. Get a job,
Exactly.
loser. Why did you get a gender studies degree? Not
Exactly.
knowing what degree you've gotten, obviously. They're just making these ridiculous assumptions. Not to say that gender studies degrees are garbage either, by the way, because sometimes we need those things in our world. It's really frustrating. It's so frustrating because there's so much propaganda. There's so much
Well,
propaganda.
and what really infuriates me, Jessica, is that people have paid. People have paid through the
And people
nose
have
on their
paid.
student loans. The taxpayers have gotten pretty much every nickel that they've ever lent out on these loans back in payments from the borrowers. And in the meantime, they've managed to also build up a stockpile of $1.7 trillion owing on the loans. And so, can I share my screen with you? I'm not sure if you have that turned on or not, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Do I have
I
to
just,
enable it?
I don't think so. I think I can probably do it.
Go
Oh,
for it.
no. But let me just say, we have people in our group, and I can show you the slideshow, people who borrowed, $30,000,
Right.
repaid $100,000, and still owe like $130,000.
Oh no, I know. Some of
Um,
them, I mean, they owe more than what they even borrow.
they've repaid far more than they ever borrowed, like many multiples of what they borrowed, but yet they still owe many multiples of what they originally borrowed.
Yeah.
This is not a bad borrower thing.
No.
This is a heinously unconstitutional loan scam.
Right.
And the people wagging their fingers, a lot of them are paid operatives and they know better. Um, but a lot of the just normal people who are like, yeah, why should my tax dollar pay for your college? People that get sucked into that, they are being duped into fighting for the colleges, for the Department of Education, and for this loan scam. They've been their mind has been hijacked. And meanwhile, they don't understand that it's their friends and their neighbors that are being ruined by
Yeah.
this loan scam. The rank and file conservatives, they're just so massively uneducated. It makes my heart hurt.
Everybody, I feel, is quite uneducated with regards
Everybody
to
who
this
doesn't have student
issue.
loans doesn't know any better, and so they just kind of let themselves be programmed what they see in the mainstream media.
Yeah,
And the
and
mainstream media is 99%. Those stories are seeded by the people running this loan scam. So
yeah.
every time you see a piece about student loans in the New York Times, you'll see this ultra liberal, young, nose hair, gender studies major,
Right. Of
probably
course.
gay, and their photo is just front and center. And there's a reason for that
Oh,
because
sure.
the New York Times wants normal people to think that this is a fringe liberal left far out left issue. It's not.
That
It's none of those things.
that's correct. Yeah. No,
This
that's social engineering. They're engineering a narrative. That's what they're
That's
doing.
exactly what they're doing.
They're
And
engineering a narrative and they're making it look like it's a fringe topic, and
that it's
the
ultra
majority
liberal.
the majority of
And
the
if you,
borrowers are not.
they want people to think, even if you're kind of in the middle, like you're kind of moderate Democrat or
Mhm.
moderate Republican, these guys, whoa, yeah, communism, yeah, they're probably communists.
The commies,
Pretty
right?
sure they're
No,
communists, and
no,
nothing.
now it's socialists. Now, if you're into that whole kind of thing, you're a socialist.
Yeah,
I
the
think if
whole
you're.
it's just ridiculous. And
Mhm.
again, I would love to throw some graphs at you, but if you look at the worst
No,
hurt
no.
states,
Oh, wait, hold on. Go check. Check if you
oh,
can do it
okay,
because I enabled it.
oh look at that, okay, I can do it.
Okay,
Okay, so
sorry.
but typically what we find among our members is that people have paid back significantly more than they borrowed.
Hmm.
Sometimes, double, triple, even quadruple what, like this person here, Joan, she paid back triple what she owed, $17,000 to $52,000. She still owes $60,000 on these loans.
Wow.
Like, the federal government is making money hand over fist on this loan scam, and
Right.
nobody seems to understand that.
Yep.
The only thing they think is that there's a bunch of young liberal gender studies majors that borrowed 200 grand, and now the taxpayer is writing a check to
Hmm.
pay for that loan. And that's just absolutely false.
Yeah.
Everything about that is false. Um, this is more representative than that example I just mentioned. And most people with student loans, they're not younger people.
Right.
They're over the age of 35. In fact, there are far more people over the age of 50 with student loans than people under the age of 25.
Right.
So, but here's another thing, Jessica, really important. If you look at the worst hurt states on student loans, it's not Massachusetts and Oregon and California and Washington. It's actually it's the red states. And so let me see here. I know I can find an example. I've been hitting Linda McMahon, Secretary of Education, quite a lot recently.
Would you say that it's
And
the red states in general, or that it's more like the southern red states?
it's the southern, well, it's both.
Okay.
So most of the red states now owe more in student loan debt than their entire annual state budgets. Okay, here's a good one. Hopefully, I don't know if you can see this or not. Hopefully, it'll come up. Yeah. So these red states that you see here owe more than their entire state budget. So, and those red states actually are red states by and large. There's a few exceptions in there. Uh, but yeah, it's the entire South. Texas is wrecked. Florida is wrecked. The Department of Education is taking more interest out of the state of Maine every year
Right.
than all the lobsters that Maine produces every year. And that is true for almost every state, where the amount of interest that the Department of Education is taking out of the states, it rivals major industries in those states. And so, of all the people who should be on our side, it should be people like Ron DeSantis and Greg Abbott, governor of Texas. Really, governors of all states should be squarely on our side, because when you're sucking $100+ billion out of the states, that has a huge economic impact. And so, yeah, like the Department of Education takes more interest out of the state of Florida than Disney World brings into the state of Florida every year. And Disney World is a massive employer in the States, like the second largest employer. So uh,
Yeah.
this is the kind of nonsense that we're looking at. The Department of Education needs to be taken to the bath and drowned in the tub. I mean, on that, I actually agree with the Republicans. It has outlived its usefulness, and quite frankly, it is causing far, far, far more damage today, economic damage. We can argue about how they're, brainwashing our youth and all that. That's kind of stay out of that issue, but certainly financially, the Department of Education is just a cancer on this country.
Um, yes. Do you think it's really just the Department of Education? Do you think that's the nucleus of the problem, or do you think really at the end of the day it's the like the banks?
I think it's the banks. I think it's, and remember, the Department of Education, they are staffed almost totally. They are stacked with former lending executives.
Oh, okay. I didn't know
So
that.
the Department of Education has been completely captured, not
Okay.
only by the lenders, but also by the colleges. Make no
Okay.
mistake, the colleges love this loan scam.
Right. Which
You
is
know,
something that's another thing, right? Where the bots and the people who come on to the comment sections of whatever social media platform you're on, if you make any kind of statement like, cancel all student loans, you get
will be
flooded.
set upon by pre-programmed,
Yeah. You
not
get
human people. This is AI at work
No,
here.
you effectively get silenced basically because it changes the algorithm, right?
Right.
Are you still there?
I am.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Um, when when all of those bots and those people start piling on with all of the same sort of propagandic comments and whatnot, the algorithm is shifted then to not in your favor, right? So it
That's
lessens
exactly
the
right.
chance that your post gets more views. It lessens the chance that anyone of like mind finds it because it's more likely going to get sent to someone who's of the same mind as those negative posters. So
Well, and even the platforms themselves, I don't trust the Facebook platform. I absolutely don't trust the X platform.
no,
I don't know which is worse, quite frankly, but I can tell you that despite all the 1.23 million members that we have in our group signed up with us, I'll be I'll be lucky if I get even, you know, 30 people commenting on one of my X posts. And that's a lot. Usually it's like 0 or 1. Sometimes like
yeah.
not even 50 people will see my posts. And, it's a war against the machines, Jessica. And I can't say exactly who's controlling the machines, but I know that the colleges are against us. They have a ton of money. I know that the lenders are against us. They have a ton of money.
So,
Um,
and I wanted to just touch on that for a moment because the colleges, right? I mean, my part of my background was in criminology, and I was writing things and researching things having to do with white collar crime, um, organized crime, white collar crime, crimes of the powerful, stuff like that. And my mind always goes back there because, when we think of crime, we think of street crime, right? We think of these sort of low level, I guess, powerless kind of criminals who are committing crimes because they maybe come from a bad background and have generational poverty issues and can't pay their bills, or maybe they're on drugs or, an alcoholic or something along those lines. But rarely do we think of crime through the lens of corporate crime. What happens when we have crime at the upper echelons of society? Um, the labeling doesn't really carry over so much, because we
I
have
mean,
this
look how many
idea.
people went to prison after the subprime home mortgage scandal. Like, I
Sure,
think
yeah.
one lower level guy might have gone to jail for like a year or
And
something.
in fact, we bailed those banks out, right?
Yes,
We
we did.
didn't prosecute people, we bailed them out,
Yeah, it was disgusting.
which, I mean, that's,
The ironies are just infuriating, and I think the mafia's wildest fantasy would be to be able to do what they do under the protection of government and have the sovereign immunity that the government enjoys. And that's exactly what's happened with the federal student loan program. It's because it's turned into the most radical, harmful, hyperinflationary loan racket that you can possibly imagine. I mean, where else can you lend out, $50,000 and get repaid $250,000 or even more?
Sure.
Um,
Sure.
only with the power that comes along with having the federal government and all the collection tools they have and all the other soft powers. They can get people fired from their jobs. They can
Ruin their reputation.
ruin their reputations, destroy their credit scores, on and on and on. Garnish their wages without a court order. So this is something that would make a mob. I've got a lot more respect for the guy that holds you up at the subway because he's at least taking a risk. The people in Washington D.C., got these cushy $200,000 a year jobs, and they rob you from behind a computer screen.
Oh
And
yeah. And I mean that's it, right? And the it's the system, it's the halls of power. It's the halls of power that ultimately need to be completely
they need to be broken back down to reality.
power
they
washed or something.
they need to be
Yeah.
power washed. They need to be forced to. Their nose has to be shoved in some shit for a little while. Pardon my
Yeah.
French. But they've got to smell the coffee and wake up and join the real world with the rest of us.
We
Yep.
were talking about um you mentioned the swag, I think it's called swag family
The
influencing
Swig
Nancy.
family, yes.
Yeah, influencing Nancy Pelosi. Then we moved on to US debt in general. Um, you mentioned that magical 25% figure, and it reminded me of I saw recently in on Twitter, everybody's like posting about how 25% of recent college graduates can't find a job, right? So everybody's like, oh my gosh, this is bad. This is a bad sign for the economy. And what does this mean? Um, this coupled with the advent of AI recruitment software, the advent of AI chatbots writing people's resumes, and the fact that companies are being now flooded with resumes because ChatGPT and Google Gemini are able to just churn out these professional written resumes at an alarmingly fast pace. So it's making it more difficult for them to sort through applications and cover letters and this and that. Then we have the H-1B visa issue, which is a real thing, right?
It is a
That's a
real thing.
very real problem. And then that opens the door into the immigration discussion, which I don't want to get into that. But we talked about, US debt in general, crimes of the powerful, white collar crime, corporate crime, the halls of power, how something significant needs to shift there. And I think we're starting to see the beginnings of some of that, right? We have like the Epstein files and that kind of thing. People are really pressing for more transparency. And we know, like, part of the reason why the Epstein files weren't able to be released was because there are some, ties with intelligence agencies and whatnot.
Right.
So, yes, are there security concerns? Absolutely, 100%. Does that mean that we shouldn't talk about it as a collective? I don't think so. I think that this is something that should be on the moral conscience of everybody. And I think it's high time that we hold our people in power accountable. Um,
Yeah, I can agree more. I don't think we're going to solve all the world's problems tonight,
no,
but I will say that it's been very interesting to see the backlash against Donald Trump from his own base
yeah,
because the transparency that they were expecting just hasn't really materialized yet. And I kind of like Trump. I'm a nonpartisan guy. I can't stand either party really, but I see good things and bad things with everybody. But I know the Trump base was waiting for the release of the Kraken. They wanted to know exactly what happened with Epstein, exactly what happened behind the scenes with January 6th, many, many other issues
Yeah.
that they were really expecting to hear some real truth about. They haven't heard it yet, and they're pissed. And I think similarly on the other side, different but similar, I think the Democratic base also has just hollowed out. We've heard so many promises for so many years, particularly on the student loan problem.
Yeah.
The Democrats had been promising to return bankruptcy to student loans since 2006.
Mm-hmm.
And since that time, the Democrats have held the Senate, the House, and the presidency, all three, the trifecta, twice. And they couldn't even manage to return bankruptcy rights, which the founding fathers called for in the Constitution, to the loans. So, I'm seeing a hollowing out of real support for both parties at this point.
Yeah.
And, I'm frankly thankful for alternative podcasts like yours. Even Tucker Carlson is really saying some interesting and unknown things.
I agree. I think,
Speaking of Epstein, for example,
he gets a lot of hate. I totally understand people have their reasons, but I like the fact that he speaks truth to power. He's not a perfect person.
I think you're exactly right. I think people are seeking the truth, and they've been just overwhelmed by this propaganda, including on social media,
Yeah.
again and again and again. So people will gravitate towards truth tellers.
Yeah.
And that's my hope. I'm all for that. No matter what side of the partisan divide the truth is the truth, and whatever side of the partisan divide that may come from. Speaking of some truth, on the student loan issue, which obviously is my narrow focus, I've been doing some research lately, and I think people need to be aware. We're seeing a groundswell from the conservatives for the return of bankruptcy protections to student loans.
Mm-hmm.
It's our core number one issue. Nobody wants to file for student loans, but we have got to have the leverage of student loans on our side in order for anything good to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So just over the past month or so, people like Tucker Carlson, like Mike Cernovich, Peter Thiel, maybe a little more than a month ago, Jerome Powell, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, and most recently, the governor, Ron DeSantis of Florida, has called unequivocally for the return of bankruptcy protections to student loans.
Has Powell? Powell did too?
Jerome Powell, yes, he did indeed.
For student loans?
Yes, about 3 to 4 months ago.
Okay.
Many conservatives have called for this. But, the caveat, the sort of add-on to that I think is a great idea, I'm the first person I'm aware of to ever propose it publicly, was that the colleges should be held at least somewhat financially responsible for discharges in bankruptcy.
Sure.
It's a critical feedback mechanism that forces the college to have some skin in the game.
Yep.
So I've been roughing out, and indeed, that's what Ron DeSantis called for over this past 4 days. So I've been roughing out some numbers, and it turns out that it's really not that expensive for the colleges to have to pay for discharges. And let me just, if I can share my screen with you, hopefully it'll work a little better this time.
Let me enable.
Okay.
There we go.
And I'm just kind of putting this out there for the record as much as anything.
Mm-hmm.
But I just want to share this with people so that they can understand. It is not a big deal to compel the colleges to reimburse the Department of Education or the federal government for bankruptcy discharges. So here's just a basic analysis. So around every year, about 150,000 people with student loans file for bankruptcy. On average, hopefully you can see that.
Yeah.
On average, they have about $40,000 in debt. So right now, only like maybe a few hundred of those people will get any kind of a discharge. So, 99.9% of those people get nothing. Well, if we were to allow 100%, treat the loans the same as all other loans in bankruptcy, and every single one of those people got a 100% discharge in bankruptcy, that would be about $6 billion. And by the way, fully half of that or more of that is just interest. That's not the amount that was originally borrowed. So the taxpayers really aren't losing that much on these discharges, nowhere near $6 billion. But even if it were $6 billion, the full principal plus interest plus fees plus everything, just the 8 Ivy League colleges by themselves, they are sitting on not only $218 billion in endowments, they've got another, tens of billions of dollars saved up in really what's called slush funds. So this is money over and above their endowments, unreserved assets. So we can see the scale of, $6 billion in discharge a year. And by the way, just the 8 Ivy League schools, their endowments grow by something somewhere around $10 billion a year. So if, for example, we were to compel all of just the Ivy League schools, none of the other colleges, only the Harvard, the Princetons, the Yales, Cornell, etc. If we were to stick only the Ivy Leagues with that $6 billion in discharge debt liability, they could easily afford it. Just the 8 Ivy Leagues.
Sure.
If we were to expand that to, say, the wealthiest 20 or 30 schools in the country, it would barely be a blip on their radar. And if we were to expand that to all colleges with endowments, all college endowments are like nearly $900 billion a year. And that grows by, $50 billion a year. So, and most people, including myself, we're not talking about holding the colleges liable for that entire $6 billion. It would be something like half of that, or even really probably even a quarter of that. So maybe a couple of $1 billion a year.
Yeah.
But my point is that the wealthiest colleges in this country can easily afford to pay for the likely bankruptcy discharges on student loans in this country. So, and quite frankly, the colleges should not be resisting this. They opposed our bankruptcy bill, which called for a similar measure in 2022. They opposed it, and they got that bill killed. And I say shame on them for that. Public scorn, in the same way that people are really, really sick and tired of the Democrats and the Republicans, like we just talked about, the people are extraordinarily livid, sick, and disgusted with the colleges, particularly with the Ivy League colleges. And so if there's any college presidents watching this, I would urge you, you need to get out in front of this. You need to volunteer for such a payback mechanism so that bankruptcy rights can be returned to these loans at long last.
I don't see it happening. I don't see it happening. And I'll tell you why. You already know why. I don't probably even need to say it, right? But the administrations at these institutions are raking it in.
Well, it's not that they're raking it in, it's that the colleges own Congress. And we saw that in 2022. It was a very obvious, simple bill, bipartisan bill, had all the support it needed to pass. Dick Durbin was the sponsor, Republicans John Cornyn and Josh Hawley were the co-sponsors. The very last minute, the colleges stood up, said no, and Dick Durbin, like a good little soldier, he killed his own bill. He abandoned his own bill.
Yeah.
And what I'm telling you now here today is that the colleges cannot continue this. The public outrage at what the colleges have done to this country, not only through this student loan scam, but in many other ways as well. And I take no position on, socialism and all the issues that people hate the colleges about, all the issues that they promote, like LGBTQ stuff, et cetera, socialism, et cetera, et cetera. But I can tell you that people are ready to snap, and they're ready to snap against the colleges.
I think that, anyone who works within the capacity of a university appointment or a college appointment is well aware of the fact that the colleges, the administrations are making out with the bag. And
Well,
it's
they
really,
are, and they have been, and
yeah.
they would love to continue to do that. But I'm telling you right here and now, Jessica, the party's over. The
Oh,
colleges
no.
can no
Yeah.
longer
No, I
feast
agree.
themselves
I
on the
agree
lives of
with
the lives.
you. I agree with you, but I think that the cold hard truth is that of course they're going to stand up and try to change Dick Durbin's mind and whoever else they need to manipulate and maneuver because they have an interest here, and that is financial. And FAFSA is a blank check for them. Everyone that walks through that door. Think about it. Think about someone should do the math on this. If you take one Ivy League or one successful state college, ASU, for example, let's take Arizona State. They have thousands upon thousands of students walking through those doors every single year, pursuing all different types of programs, right? So even those who don't go for a degree path are still paying. You can sit and audit courses, but that doesn't mean that you're not going to pay. They're still making out with money, but auditing, you can't get FAFSA if you're sitting and auditing something. So you have to be on a degree path. And there was this thing that we discussed last time and the time before was when I interviewed, oh, who was it? I interviewed somebody. Anyway, we were discussing the incentivization to credentialize further beyond one degree. So I feel like this is something that people feel, especially those who come from generational poverty, right? If you get one degree, now you're in the workforce, right? So the workforce, once you're there, they tell you, well, you need a master's if you want to get to step two or whatever it is on the ladder. So you are incentivized to go back to school, to take out another FAFSA loan, to put your name on the dotted line again and sign another contract with the government. And it's a system and it's broken for us, but it's working in perfect order for all of them. Do you know what I mean?
Oh,
So
I agree with you completely. The system as it is currently designed and running works perfectly for the
yeah,
colleges. It works perfectly for the Department of Education. It works perfectly for the servicers who
yep,
are free to cash in, particularly on defaulted loans.
yeah,
But very large things are changing under our feet as we speak. When 75% of all borrowers have stopped paying, and that's even less today than it was a year ago, which is
right,
surprising to me. Um, Very large changes are in our immediate future for this loan program.
yeah,
I think, just in the past 2 months, I've seen a huge groundswell among conservatives all calling for the return of bankruptcy rights. And so I think it's really almost inevitable that at a minimum we're going to see the return of bankruptcy rights to these loans. I don't think any congressman quite soon will be able to publicly defend the colleges on this. I just don't see any defense. And like I said, people are now getting into of the 43 million people with student loans, most of them are over 35 now. And they are bitter and they are resentful, and the colleges stand to lose huge amounts of money in alumni giving. Um, I'm hearing from people on my group all over the place. They're saying, I'm never giving a dime to my college. In
yeah,
fact,
yeah,
I feel like sending my college a bill.
yeah.
And so I would just urge the colleges very strongly, you had better think very, very, very carefully about how you treat your students and your alumni, because that thing is going to come back to bite you in your ass. And karma is a bitch.
Yeah,
I, I would strongly urge the Alan Garbers and the president of Princeton and Yale, frankly, if they want to save their face with this country, they should be fully behind the idea of the colleges, particularly the wealthy colleges, reimbursing the taxpayers for bankruptcy discharges. And I think every college is different. It depends really on the school you go to. But
it
certainly,
does.
if
Yeah,
you go to like DeVry University, there's not much of a network there.
right.
Maybe the state schools are better, some of the private schools. But looking at the big picture, Jessica, 85% of all student loan borrowers will never be able to repay their loans.
Right.
And that's like 37 or so million people of the 43 million student loan borrowers.
Since we're
So
talking, yes, go ahead. I'm sorry.
in that circumstance, over time, particularly as people, get into their late 30s, 40s, 50s, beyond, they start getting really resentful, and they start getting a little wise, and they're like, okay, well, where's the money? And the money resides with the colleges. These endowments are growing by leaps and bounds. We'll be probably at $2 trillion in national endowments within 8 or 10 years, maybe even less, depending on how things go.
Yeah.
There's an undercurrent of seething resentment that people are feeling about about colleges in general, certainly,
Yeah.
but even about their own alma maters.
Yeah.
I myself went to a fairly expensive private school. I didn't borrow a ton of money, but to see my $35,000 in student loans go to $100,000, like pretty shortly after graduation, through this predatory loan scam.
Mhm.
I'm mad at the lenders. I'm mad at the Department of Education. But, who is sitting in the catbird seat is my alma mater. Fight on USC. I'm a proud Trojan, love watching the football games.
Yeah.
But, we're talking about a college that takes on, tens, hundreds of millions of dollars a year in student loan funding. And so it's really hard to hide from the standpoint of the colleges. And
Yeah.
I think they're going to have to at least capitulate, at least to the extent of chipping something in, whether it's $6 billion or $3 billion a year for bankruptcy discharges. That
They
is by
will,
far and away the best deal that they're going to get.
it won't, I'm
And
telling you
it
right
will
now.
keep the torches and the pitchforks at bay. Uh,
I
but
don't, I don't see it happening. I don't see it happening. I don't think they're going to capitulate to that. I think if anything, they will press for student loan cancellation before they will capitulate to anything like that. I don't think they're going to do it.
well, it's not really up to them. Don't forget, the colleges are a very small part of this country's population.
But they have
Um,
influence, like you said, in
well, they
Congress.
have influence behind the scenes, but when you get the MAGA base calling for bankruptcy rights, and you get 43 million people generally in agreement with that. If you look at a poll from Republicans like Thomas Massey, 67% of his people believe that bankruptcy should be returned to student loans and that the colleges should be held financially responsible. So in that kind of a public zeitgeist, Congress really kind of doesn't have a choice. They can no longer allow the colleges to get away with this very unique and undeserved position they find themselves in.
There would have to be a huge.
Remember also, back during the subprime home mortgage crisis, people similarly started getting very, very resentful of the colleges. And indeed, Congress passed a 5% endowment tax on the universities. Now that tax, to the best of my knowledge, no longer is in place. But yeah, a 5% endowment tax today would be, $45 billion a year. And that would very easily cover the bankruptcy discharges needed by times 10.
Hey, if Congress can make it happen, right on. I just don't see the academies themselves being willing participants.
Oh no, they won't be. Well,
You know.
I frankly hold out hope that the universities, as supposed beacons and pillars of morality,
Oh,
uh, and not only that, but really in their self-interest to prevent their alumni from turning against them, 85% of whom will never be able to repay their loans.
I just wanted to
Uh, I think
say,
that I think that they should see it that it's definitely in their best interests to get in front of this. And really, if I was Alan Garber of Harvard University, I would volunteer for it because it's far better for Harvard to pay, a couple $100 million a year for the next 5, 10, 15 years, however long it takes. Far better that than to literally, you know, sleep with one eye open for the next 10 years as this lending program, as this catastrophe really hits home.
the only other thing I wanted to
Yeah,
say about your slide, which I appreciate, thank you for sharing that. And you can always, at any point in the future, share more with me.
sure.
You mentioned, the 43 million student loan borrowers. We have that figure. We have also this Department of Education. So you use the figure of the average, right? The department. So we're taking the Department of Education, their figure of $40,000 in debt is the average
Is
that
the average.
exists right out there in the world. We're taking them on face value that that figure is true, right? In my
Yeah, I actually think it's a little higher than that. I think there's some interest that they're
oh,
not including, but ballpark figure, it's pretty close. So about 1 million people file for bankruptcy every year. Around 15% of the adult population have student loans.
but
The average debt is roughly 40,000. So
this is a
40
this is a department, this is a government department that has been largely mismanaged. And I mean, why are we
massively mismanaged. Well,
right?
I don't know.
So
I
right.
think
So
they're
my
quite happy with how they've managed
yeah,
things, but
so we can't take them on face value for that figure. And to be honest, I think it's patently false because everyone that I have talked to is well over
way over
40,000,
40,000.
way
Yeah,
over 40,000.
I don't understand why it's so low. It should be an average of 50 to 55,000 would be my best guess. But
Here's
Department of
why
Education data is the gold standard. I mean,
here's why it can't be. It literally can't be true. Because if you look at the tuition prices of any school, any college, any 4-year university, if you look at how much it costs to get a BA or a BS degree in the matter of 4 years, it is well over $40,000.
oh, it's 4 times that on average, I would think.
That's what I'm
It's like,
saying. There's
yeah.
no way that that's an average. So I don't I'm sorry. I feel like it's another piece of propaganda, and I don't think we should be using it.
Well, what else? What better data is there? It's the gold standard. It's the only standard. It's what I've been going off of for the whole 20 years that I've been doing this. But I agree with you.
Is there
In
any
fact,
way?
going forward, I think it's going to be even less trustworthy to trust Department of Education figures,
Yeah.
um, particularly as the loan balances are going to be exploding. For years, I've been very suspicious that the Department of Education is not including the interest that accrues on defaulted loans when they
Mhm.
report the value of their defaulted loans.
Yeah.
And in fact, I have an old email, and this is kind of getting down into the weeds. I have an email from a Department of Education staffer from 2009, which states unequivocally that they do not report the interest that has accrued on defaulted loans. So when they say, oh, our defaulted loan portfolio is like $60 billion, it's probably closer to like quadruple that amount because of interest and penalties and fees, etc.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
so it's the best numbers that we have, and so I'm kind of going with what I got. I
Yeah. No, I'm not chastising
can't
you
make
by
any
any means.
radical assumptions or accuse anybody of lying. So
No, 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 no. That I'm not trying to chastise you or your math or your figures. I'm just saying that, you know, it's a, you know what I
I'm
mean?
I agree with you. The average student was leaving undergrad with $38,000 in debt, like 7 to 8 years ago,
That's what I'm
if I remember.
saying. That's what I'm
And so
saying.
it can't be that low now. Still, it
No,
can't be.
it
There's no
can't
way.
be.
I agree.
It literally can't be that low. It's like almost next to impossible.
There's a lot of games that are going on. I, I also think that one thing the colleges do, even though they have a high sticker price, a lot of times they will invent a scholarship, and they'll be like, "Hey, what do you know?" And they do the calculation of how they can get the 100% of the student loan money from on the backs of the students. Um, Now, for undergrad, the loan limits prior to the big beautiful bill were $31,000 for undergrad, $57,000 for independent students. Um, and so, I think the average of $40,000 is really more appropriate to undergraduate students. It's closer to that.
Who are
The
not
only way that you can explain
independent.
that low figure is to say that there's a whole bunch of people that maybe they went 1 or 2 years and dropped out. Maybe they did a year at a community college. So there's got to be a whole ton of people that are walking around with, five, six, $7,000 in student loans. But
I don't buy it, man. I
I don't
don't.
buy it either. And
Nope.
if you look at the department's estimates for the total student loan debt over the past, let's say, since COVID, because loans were paused, okay, so it didn't grow. But since COVID ended and since the loans have been turned back on, the overall student loan debt has been hovering right around $1.7 trillion. It should have gone up by at least 300 to $400 billion over the past 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
The COVID emergency was over roughly 2 years ago, and even in those 2 years alone, the amount owing should have grown by something like 200 or $300 billion.
So
And so
something's not adding up, right? I
I
mean,
agree, something's not adding up. There's something they're not telling us.
there's some.
If I was in Congress, I would nail the Department of Education staffers to the wall and force them to publicly come clean.
I would prosecute the lenders.
Yes, I would do that too.
I would
I
also
would
prosecute
I would
the heads of the
prosecute the
colleges.
lenders, the lobbyists, many
Yeah.
staffers at the Department of Education. I would do investigations full on. I would do another accounting and look for illegal kickbacks to and
Yeah.
from colleges. Um, yeah, that's the kind of transparency that we need. But at the end of the day, we can now safely say that the lending program is in catastrophic failure. We know
Yeah.
that for a fact. And so what it's going to look like when the dust settles, we don't really know. But
Right.
I'm seeing a great hope for finally getting the leverage of bankruptcy returned, and that's really the first thing that needs to happen, in my opinion.
I hope so. God, that
I
would
hope so too.
revolutionize. I mean, what are people going to do? Honestly, there's just too much. There's too much, and it's all being swept under the rug, and the propaganda machine will fall apart. It will.
People just don't believe it. Yeah,
So,
people are smart. People can smell bullshit, and
yeah,
the bullshit that's been slung our way with student loans for so many years is just obvious to all, I think, at this point.
yeah. All right, Ellen, thanks for meeting with me again. I appreciate it, and
Well,
hopefully
thank you, Jessica.
this will help update, the people. Yeah, there we go. So
There's my
all of
little.
you can head over to Alan's, what would you call, it's not technically a nonprofit, is it? Is it
It's
student?
a strictly informal grassroots group,
Yeah.
studentloanjustice.org.
Studentloanjustice.org. You can head
And
over
check
there.
out the class action lawsuit if your credit got wrecked over the past year, studentloanlegalaction.org.
Studentloanlegalaction.org. What's the other link you wanted you said bit.ly/ hear it from Tucker.
Oh, right. That's sort of connected to the lawsuit, bit.ly/ hear it from Tucker. And you can see an honest to God Republican saying some very good things.
Tucker Carlson on student loans. Yeah, I really would love to have him on the show.
I hope Tucker takes another very hard look at the student loan program. I really think
Yeah, me
the
too.
time is ripe for a guy like him.
Yep, me too. I love it. If you're one of the people out there right now who's speaking truth to power in any form or fashion, I applaud you. I want you on my show. Let's talk. Okay.
This is where it's at, guys. You came to the right place for the truth.
Thank you,
Rad
sir. Have a
futures.
great night. Bye.